Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of WossyRadio. So today, we need to take a look at Game 2 of Round 1 of the Dragon Gym Challenge. Yay! I'm a little bit excited. We've already seen Kenny and Toby battle it out. I won't ruin the result. Check that one out in the description. There is a link. Today, we're going to be looking at Joe and Chip. And they're going to be having a little bit of a play. Joe, of course, being the lovely chap from Omnipoke, he is playing a metal deck using products like this. And Chip being the lovely Chainer Trip, also of YouTube, and he is playing Lightning using lovely products like this. Now, when I refer to these products, I am, of course, referring to the lovely folks at Dragon Shield. They have provided mats and sleeves, and them and the lovely Stefan Eriksson and myself, we all got together and ran this tournament, and we're a little bit excited. We've already had one game, and I tell you what, this one's a good one. So grab yourselves a nice cold beverage, sit down, relax, and enjoy Game 2 of Round 1 of the Dragon Gym Challenge. Okay then, so we have got Joe and his metal deck on top. We have got Chip and his lightning deck on the bottom. Of course, you know, Joe did very well in the first Dragon Gym Challenge. He got to the final where he lost a close match against David Hockman, a really good series that one was. And Joe looks into these formats better than most. I talk to Joe a lot. Joe actually does like full-on metagame analyses of this tournament, looking at what he is expecting are the toughest decks for each potential typing that he could have. It is a rather phenomenal dedication. Chip, I must confess, I am not as honed in on his preparation, but if you know Chip from his YouTube channel, you know that Chip lives and breathes Pokemon. You know that he is prepared for this as well. Now, we do see that he's actually drawn both his scoop up nets in his opening hand, but has not managed to find himself a basic Pokemon. Remember, we are limited to only 2 of each card in this set. In this format, you know, 2 of each non-basic energy card, and that makes things very interesting. It leads to some awkward decisions, because you end up playing more different Pokemon, but you're then less likely to draw into the Pokemon you are playing. I do find it very interesting that in the first Dragon Gym Challenge, we saw a lot of Stage 2s. We have also seen Chip mulligan, so Joe will be starting the game with 1 extra card in his hand. I don't think there are so many Stage 2s around at the moment in this particular format, but we'll have to see what these lovely gentlemen have come up with. So, it looks like Joe has started a Minccino, Chip has started with an Ordino. Now, that Ordino is actually a really nice one. It just says if it's in the active, you get to draw a card. Now, Chip does actually go and get his Shinx there. That's really cool, and does, of course, show that Chip is playing a Stage 2 line. He could just go for Luxray for the item lock. I'll tell you now, he is actually playing a full Luxray line. Now, it is worth noting that Shinx could actually evolve on your first turn if you went second. That is unfortunately not an option here, given that Chip went first. But then again, he doesn't need to evolve it because he can't attack anyway. So this is a decent start. He's got the Luxray, he's got the Ordino in the active. This is pretty much going to be what he's looking for. Joe does also get a Great Ball coming down here. You can only play 2 of each card. You've got to play some Pokemon Search. He's got a Minccino in the active, and Joe doesn't really want to be accelerating with Cinccino. He can be attacking accelerating energy. What he really wants to do is get it out the active, and looky there, Joe's got Jirachi. Now, of course, that is one of the gigantic advantages that Joe has here, is that playing a metal deck, he does get to play that Jirachi, but all the types have got good and bad points about them. It is worth reiterating at this stage, we have actually banned Metal Frying Pan, so Joe is playing the one deck where he's got a banned card. Now you see Joe does actually just manually retreat there, attaches an energy to Minccino, discards the energy to get it out the active, but now he can use Jirachi's ability. Look at the top 5 cards of his deck, find a card, a trainer card, put it into his hand, and he's actually gone for a Marnie there. Now, he does go Pokemon Communication, pops the Pokemon back into his hand. He's going to want something metal here. Maybe, Duraludon is the kind of starter that Joe tends to play. Does damage while accelerating energy. I would imagine that Joe would probably go Duraludon here. Joe is not incidentally going for lots of evolving. Joe is going for a basic metal deck. Now, of course, Joe did go all basic in the previous Dragon Gym Challenge and then did lose to Obstacoon in the final. He does have a Galarian Berserker here, so he does at least have an option for for an evolved Pokemon. Now, he does go for that Duraludon. Joe actually does play Bisharp as well, and he's got the Chinchino. So Joe does have although Chinchino is not good against Obstagoon, but he does have a bunch of evolution options here. He's not falling for that again. So he does get that Duraludon down. He does get a Metal Goggles on there. We didn't ban that, just Frying Pan. And we actually see a Metal Core Barrier coming down onto Victini, and then a Marnie to give both players a new hand. I love Metal Core Barrier here. Clearly what Joe wants is an escape board, so that he can free retreat Jirachi even when it's asleep, which it is after using the ability. But Metal Core Barrier reduces damage done by 70, and falls off at the end of the turn. Oh, it looks like Joe's attaching an energy here, and Joe has already attached an energy to retreat the Jirachi. Is he going to be caught for this? I don't think he is. I think that's a double attachment from Joe there. At the end of the video, I will go through and just double check to make sure that was. In fact, I'm going to stop the video right now, and I am just going to go back and have a quick gander. It looks like Joe's attached a capture energy on the same turn. He attached an energy to retreat his Minccino. So I have gone back and had a look. I know no time passed for you. It did for me. We do see a Pawniard coming down on the bench for Joe here by virtue of that capture energy. There was a double attachment. If I'm missing that, if I've seen it wrong, please let me know in the comment section. What are we going to do about it? Unfortunately, nothing. There is nothing we can do about it. We are relying on the players to police themselves here. Unfortunately, Chip didn't catch it, Joe didn't catch it, and we can't just rewind the entire game that by the time I'm recording this has already happened. Now, we do see a scoop up net getting that Minccino in the active, and then so he's actually double drawing with Ordino here, and then attaching a speed energy. That's 4 cards that Chip's just drawn without playing a supporter. That's pretty good going on Chip's part there. We do also see an air balloon onto that Minccino to give it free retreat in the future. Unfortunately, yes, Joe did gain a bit of an advantage, but it is not just Joe's responsibility, it is also Chip's responsibility to... Oh, we see a Cynthia and Caitlin here. Going to get a Marnie back and then draw 3 cards. It is up to both players, especially in a friendly tournament like this. We have to just chalk it up as one of those things, but we're talking something that happened on the first turn of the game. I would be absolutely stunned if that had a material impact on the outcome of the game. So, we see a tag call coming down from Joe here. Now, he's obviously not getting any tag team Pokemon, but he can go and get some tag team supporters. And he gets himself another Cynthia and Caitlin, and he gets himself a Guzma and Hala. So they are going to be available to use for him in the future. Can't play them now. Of course, the thing is, he just drew a Marnie from the Cynthia and Caitlin. So what this essentially does is this sets Joe up for several turns. Maybe Chip plays a Marnie and thwarts him, but Joe can essentially play those 2 tag team supporters and then play a Marnie, and he's kind of got supporters in hand now for 3 turns in a row. That's a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. That's a very good thing. Now, he is using that Jirachi again, and he does hit the escape board. Remember, Jirachi does need the escape board here. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of stuck in the active. It does happen, unfortunately. But it looks like Joe has hit the escape board here, so that's a very, very good thing. And, I mean, really here, he's going to be looking for just using that Duraludon. I mean, that Duraludon there It just does third, and you do see the metal energy, which is needed there in order to actually use the good attack, that metal sharpener. And it does 30 damage, and you attach a metal energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So presumably here he's going to use that to attach the metal energy to his Pawniard. Oh no, he's actually going to use it to accelerate energy to his active Duraludon. Power Beam does 110 damage for free energy. So this is going to build him up a little bit faster. Plus he's got 130 HP and the metal goggles attached, which is reducing damage done by 30. And Chip's in a bit of an issue here. There's an issue going on. And the issue is that Chip is behind. And Chip is not playing some big, gigantic, smashy deck. He is relying on things like Luxray to try and item lock. It is going to be difficult for him to come back from this. Joe has basically gone and got that Duraludon up very, very nice and quickly. And that is going to be an issue. Unless Chip's got something to take it down. And he does play other Pokemon. He's got Xurkitree and he's got Zapdos, but none of them are really hitting the numbers he's going to need to take out that Duraludon. And that is a terrible... And in this kind of format, staring down a Pokemon with 160 HP, basically, doing 110 damage a turn... That is harsh. I mean, you can also see here why being metal and having Jirachi is so good. Though I will remind you, in the previous Dragon Gym challenge, metal didn't make it out of round 1. Actually, lightning didn't make it out of round 1, I don't think, either. So, yeah. Now, we do see an Evolution Incense coming down here. That gets a Luxray to go down. Now, remember, Luxray does have the trainer locking ability, or the item locking ability, but it only does 30 damage while item locking. And the gigantic issue there is that Joe's got metal goggles. So as it stands at the moment, Luxray is doing 0 damage. It does stop Joe playing item cards, but Joe takes literally no damage from that Luxray. Now, we do see U-turn board going onto the Ordino here. We'll allow it to retreat for free. And we do see Chinchino is out as well, which can draw cards. But what does Chip do here? He can do 10 damage with Chinchino while accelerating in energy. He can do 0 damage while trainer lock or item locking. It's not really trainer locking anymore. We used to call items, as they are now, trainers, but they are now items. So he's basically got to give up his Ordino. He's just got to sit there and let Joe take a KO on the Ordino, which is not an ideal situation at all. It has not been the start he's been looking for here. And, you know, Joe really has had a good start. And now the question becomes, where does he go from here? Now, he does get Mount Coronet down, so he gets an energy back from the discard pile. And he does play Cynthia and Caitlin, discarding that energy. And then he draws 3 cards while getting a supporter back. And what he's really doing here is just making sure he's got all the cards that he needs. Joe is not under a huge amount of pressure at this stage. Now, he is using a Pokemon Communication. I want to say he's putting Duraludon back, but that was very quick. I might have misseen it. But clearly he's going Chinchino here. And at this stage, the only thing that Joe really needs is a backup attacker. The Duraludon is already hitting a decent amount of damage. He's got Chinchino and Jirachi as consistency options. So we do see Adventure Bag being played here. Of course, even with Metal Frying Pan banned, Metal still have a lot of very nice tools with your Metal Core Barrier and your Metal Goggles, not to mention the escape board he's playing for Jirachi. So I like this from Joe, and obviously he's thinning out his deck here. And by thinning out his deck, he's making it more likely he's going to draw into what he wants to draw. And by just doing a pure draw with Cynthia and Caitlin, by digging out these things, that really does give him a big advantage, because when you've only got 2 of each card in your deck, it makes it less likely you're going to draw into them. It makes it more awkward to actually get what you want to get. So what he's doing here is just thinning out his deck and making it more likely he's going to be drawing. Of course, neither player has really been hurting for drawing this game. Both of them have been drawing quite nicely. Now, we do see a capture energy coming down here onto the Chinchino. And it looks like, I want to say that's an Alolan Meowth. Now, remember, Alolan Meowth has that really nice ability that lets you discard a couple of cards from your hand. Oh, sorry, Galarian Meowth. And then search for a Galarian Berserker. And then just put it into your hand. And then you're doing an extra 20 damage with all of your attacks. So this is starting to look scary for Chip at this stage. Joe is going to be rocking double Chinchino before you know it. He's going to have a Berserker next turn. He's already hitting 110 with his active Duraludon. And Chip really doesn't have much going. I mean, obviously at this stage, he just needs, Luxray. And I'm not even sure if Luxray alone is going to be enough, let's be clear. Now, we do see a Rosa here. Now, Rosa is awesome in this format, like properly awesome. What Rosa does is it lets you search for a Pokemon, an energy, and a trainer card if you had a Pokemon KO during your opponent's previous turn, which obviously has happened here. Now, Luxray, the good news is Luxray will one-hit KO. It's not a permanent solution, but Chip's going to be able to get a Luxray here. And Luxray for a single energy does 160 if it evolved from Luxio this turn, otherwise it only does 60. But even with the metal goggles, that will be just enough to get a one-hit KO. It will exactly get a one-hit KO on that Duraludon. And Joe has done a really good job setting up his board. He's not necessarily done a good job of setting up backup attackers. Oh, we have a boss's orders, a Minccino and an energy here, which either tells us both the Luxray are prized, or Chip already has the Luxray or a way to get it in his hand ready to go. Otherwise, he would have gone for Luxray there. The other thing to bear in mind, Chip did use a scoop up net fairly early on in the game. Oh, Zapdos comes down. Okay, there is the Luxray. There is a second energy, and I like the second energy here, because Luxray's second attack, it is Head Bolt for 120. Honestly, if Chip's got other energy in his hand, I would have saved that for something like the Zapdos. It doesn't make a huge difference, but he doesn't need the energy onto Luxray now. And if that Luxray gets KO'd, then that is going to be a wasted attachment. And Chip doesn't have many of these to go. Now, there is the KO. Like I say, it did exactly the right amount of damage. Chip's used one scoop up net, which means there's one scoop up net left in his deck and one Luxray line, so there's only two more big raids to go. Having said that, 3 or 4 big raids in one game, that's 3 or 4 KOs in this format, because 160 is gigantic. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all he needs. Now, we do see Lana's fishing rod coming down here. It's going to get Joe a Pokemon and a tool. And he's gone for a Metal Core Barrier, and he's gone for a Duraludon. And I like this play from Joe. That Metal Core Barrier, again, in this format, we're talking about generally lower HPs and lower damage amounts. So by using Metal Core Barrier to reduce damage done by 70, most of the time that is going to guarantee a whiffed KO from Chip. And that's going to be a very, very good thing. Now, I did speak about Chip's second energy attachment and how it wasn't necessary. The thing to remember here is, if we look at Joe's board, where's the KO coming from? Like, seriously, where is Joe's KO coming from this turn? Now, for those of you that may have forgotten, there is a Pawniard on Joe's bench. That could turn into a Bisharp. It is the Bisharp from Team Up. We've had a bunch of Bisharps lately. And if there are no damage counters on it, it does 120 for a single energy. But he would need both of his Galarian Berserker to get a one-hit KO. It is worth noting that in Sword and Shield, those lightning Pokemon no longer have a resistance to metal. So that would get the KO, but it's kind of irrelevant at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. It is entirely irrelevant because he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the 2-2 Berserker line. So he can do 140, and we can see there's already one Berserker out on the field. But 140 isn't going to be enough to go and get a KO. He's going to whiff the KO with 140. Now, we do see Jirachi's ability. That is one of the great things that Joe has in his deck. Oh, we see a Metal Saucer. But what's he going to accelerate onto? I mean, you don't play Galarian Berserker for the attacking. You play it for the ability. That is why you play Galarian Berserker. He doesn't have a Duraludon down to accelerate the energy too. Or does he? I cannot see what that is. Whatever it is, he's put the energy on it. Oh, that might be Cobalion, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we do see the manual attachment there. And we see the metal goggles coming down. If that is Cobalion, it's a Cobalion from Lost Thunder. And it does 30 damage for 2 energy. And during your opponent's next turn, it takes 30 less damage from attacks. Or for free energy, it does 120 if there's a tool attached. So it is Cobalion. So we're just going to see 30 damage here. But now it's taking 30 less from attacks. Bearing in mind, it's also got the metal goggles. Which means even with the 2 energy, Chip can only do 60 damage this turn. Now we do see a Cynthia coming down here from Joe, just going to give himself a new hand of 6 cards. Now I'm thinking about the back and forth here. Joe is going to not be 2-hit KO in Luxray. He'll do 30, then he'll do 120, he'll be 10 damage. Oh no, he's got Berserker, okay. So Joe is getting a 2-hit KO because of Berserker, and Chip is not getting a 1-hit KO. Interestingly enough, even if Chip got a fresh Luxray this turn, he still wouldn't be getting a 1-hit KO because Cobalion's got an effective HP of 180 this turn. And this is going to be awkward for Chip to take down. I know Joe's only doing 50 damage, but it's still going to be awkward here. Now, Zapdos does a natural 80 damage, which means if Chip does 120 this turn, it'll be reduced to 60. And then assuming Joe takes a KO, then next turn Chip will come up and do 80 with Zapdos, but it'll be reduced to 50. And that will, because that'll only be the metal goggles, not the attack. And that will actually leave Cobalion with 10 HP remaining. So Joe could be avoiding a 2-hit KO here. And taking a quick look at Chip's deck list, he does play Electro Power, so one of them would be able to do it. In fact, a double Electro Power this turn would get a KO. It's a lot to ask for, but if Chip can drop a double Electro Power this turn, he would be doing an extra 60, add to the 120, that would get a KO. That would put him in a really strong position moving forward. Can he pull it off? We have got a proper, back and forth game going on here. This is, the first round we saw, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, check out the link in the description. But the first game we saw between Toby and Kenny really was just Toby stopping Kenny doing anything, and it was a very one-sided game. In this match, oh, now we do see the switch. I like this play. He's putting Zapdos up first, and now Zapdos doesn't do a huge amount of damage. Oh, but we do see a boss's orders coming down here. And he's bringing up the Pawniard here. And he's actually taking a KO on the Pawniard using Zapdos. And I like this play. This gives Chip a little bit of extra time to try and draw into those Electro Power. And remember, if Chip draws into 2 Electro Power in one turn, he can get a 1-hit KO and really swing this game. If and when Chip takes down that Cobalion, Joe was going to be relying on that Pawniard. Or, Bisharp as it would then be. And that's not there anymore. So now Joe's searching for a backup attacker. Incidentally, That Pawniard might not have been on the bench if Joe hadn't got the extra attachment with capture energy, so Chip has actually got himself a little bit of an advantage doing it. It's given him a nice, easy KO, though I suppose he could have gone for the Minccino instead. But like I've said, I'm done with the discussion on that. Neither player caught it. There's nothing we can do about it now. And going through this game, I really don't think it's had a huge impact. It didn't let Duraludon attack earlier. He did get the Pawniard out, but that's now gone. I don't think it's made a huge difference. So we do see Joe just continuing to draw cards with these Cinccino here. And now we see a great ball, and clearly at this stage, he needs another attacker. Whatever that might end up looking like. Whether it's a Pawniard or it's another Duraludon. Now, Joe has played one Metal Saucer, but I don't believe he's played the second. So if he can hit one Metal Saucer, he attaches this turn plus Metal Saucer, and then next turn it will be ready to go, even if Chip gets the one-hit KO on Cobalion here. And that's fairly important. But see, Chip's done this very, very well. Not only did he get a cheeky KO last turn, he's actually left his Luxray out of the firing line. Like I've said, especially when you start combining it with Electro Power, Luxray is the thing that Chip's got on the field that could be really devastating. Now, we do see Joe here going a little bit more aggressive. He's chosen to just go for the second attack on Cobalion. Remember, that's the one that for free energy does 120 if you have a tool attached. Joe very much does have a tool attached. So he's going to do 120 here. And Zapdos is from the era where lightning Pokemon had resistance to metal. But remember, firstly, it doesn't because it's kind of a flying type. And secondly, Joe had the Berserker anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So what has Chip got in return? Joe kept the back and forth rolling. Can Chip? I mean, if he can get Zapdos Energy Boss's orders, he could just take another cheeky prize off the Minccino on the bench. That would be fun. It's a lot to ask for, mind you, but could be fun. And this is why, early game, we do see an ordinary rod coming down, getting a Zapdos and a couple of energy. This is why early game, losing that Ordino, not having a good attacker, it's why that ended up being so awkward. At this stage, Chip wants to have that air balloon on an Ordino, and, this is a format we're only playing single prize Pokemon. Which means Joe has got to take 5 KOs without winning the game. So that's 5 opportunities to whack the Ordino active, draw a card. That's an extra 5 cards drawn throughout the course of the game, and believe me, that makes a difference. Again, there's nothing we can do about it now, but that would have been a huge advantage. Now, we do see Zapdos hitting the bench. That's big. Does he have the energy? Does he have the boss's orders? He has a reset stamp. I'll be honest with you, I don't think Joe's terribly worried about reset stamp. He's got one Cinccino already on the board, a Minccino ready to evolve, and if Chip takes a KO, Joe's got a Jirachi with an skateboard he can put active. Don't get me wrong, I like the reset stamp play here, and I like that Chip is trying to slow Joe down, but let's be super clear, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. One thing that Joe has done, and to be fair, Chip's done a pretty good job of this as well with a double Cinccino. They've both basically said, look, if you're playing any kind of hand disruption here, a Marnie, a reset stamp, whatever it might be, I am prepared for this. I am here to make sure that your shenanigans are not going to be hurting me. Now, we do see Chip dumping a Titanizer with Cinccino. And there we see a Pokemon Communication. Presumably, he's going to go for a Shinx here, I would imagine. He doesn't really need any more consistency unless he goes for an Ordino. Oh, he has gone for an Ordino. What I was saying a minute ago... Now, it all depends on a number of factors. Does he have a tool that he can use to free retreat? Does he have access to it? the other, I mean, there's still 3 KOs before, without Joe winning the game. So that's still 3 extra cards with Ordino. So absolutely worth it. And we do see Ordino going in the active, drawing a card, playing an Electro Power, using a Scoop Up Net. Does he have the other Electro Power? Oh, he doesn't need the other Electro Power because Joe used a big attack last turn to take a KO. So Joe's attack has not reduced damage done by 30. That was huge. That was such a great sequence from Trainer Chip there. Using the Pokemon communication to get the Ordino, getting the Ordino in the active, grabbing the Electro Power with it, and then getting the KO. That was huge. It does mean that Chip is out of Scoop Up Net now, though. Which means now there is still potentially 1 Luxray remaining in his deck, but that is it now. There is 1 Luxray, and that's all Chip's got access to for the rest of the game. Both his Scoop Up Net have gone. That is important. And it really does seem to be a question here of who is going to be able to last in terms of attackers. Chip's got a Zapdos, not the best attacker, but it's there, and a Luxray in the active. Joe's drawing cards with Cinccino, and he's got a 0 energy Duraludon. That's what he's got. Now, the good news is that Duraludon is out of range of Luxray, because Duraludon's got 130 HP, and I talk about this a lot in this game. There is such a big difference between 120 and 130. It's one of the numbers that the card designers obsess over. Luxray does 120, Duraludon has 130. But remember that Chip has only played one of his 2 Electro Power. So if he can drop a second Electro Power here, he can get a KO on Duraludon, or at least he could. Because while I was talking there, Joe went and dropped a Metal Core Barrier onto Duraludon. Guarantees there is no KO coming from Chip here. I believe a Pawniard hit the bench as well. And you'll see that Chip's got the little tricks coming out here. Using Boss's Orders. 2 of his 3 KOs have only come about because of Boss's Orders and Electro Power. But he's built his deck very well in that way to essentially go, look, if you're playing high HP Pokemon, if you're trying to deny me prizes, and Joe very much is trying to deny the prizes here, Chip has got these little cheeky ways around it. And yes, I know that most people are going to play 2 Boss's Orders in their deck, and I know that basically anyone playing Lightning would play 2 Electro Power, but it doesn't mean they're going to save the cards, use them at the right time, make the right decisions, etc. Now, we do see Xurkitree coming down here, and Chip attaches his second and final Speed Energy. That's the one that draws 2 cards when you attach it. Huge advantage for Lightning decks. Xurkitree, it is the one that came around in Unified Minds. If your opponent has exactly 3 prizes remaining, you do 120 damage for a single energy. Or 2 energy, 50 damage plus Confusion, but clearly this is the turn where Xurkitree needs to be on the bench. So that next turn, if Joe takes a KO, Xurkitree's hitting 120 for a single energy, and that's pretty big. That is pretty gosh darn big. It is interesting how many of these Ultra Beasts actually end up looking really nice in this format, because so many of them have single energy attacks. Oh, we do see a Quick Ball coming down from Chip here. Maybe we do. And it is interesting to note, of course, because we're playing single prize Pokemon, so the whole your opponent must have X prizes remaining, unless Joe can take multiple prizes in one turn, which some Pokemon can do, but it's much, much rarer than just having a GX or V knocked out, then that means there will be a turn where Chip has access to this, where Chip is able to use a big attack on Xurkitree. Now, we do see Ordino coming down here, and it's got a U-turn board attached for the free retreat, and we do see Cynthia being played as well. So Chip certainly is starting to build up his board quite nicely. We got the double Cinccino, we got the Ordino, we got a Zapdos, we got a Xurkitree, we've got a Luxray. I mean, at this stage, Chip has drawn enough cards and searched enough cards that he's basically had the option to do whatever he likes at this stage. Chip has basically had everything that he wants here. But it looks like he's choosing to just pop Ordino in the active, draw a card, and call it quits. He's just giving up the Ordino. Now, he is actually a prize ahead of Joe at this stage. He's got 3 prizes remaining. Joe's got 4. If we just swap prize for prize here, Chip will win the game. Now, we do see Lana's Fishing Rod getting a Metal Core Barrier back for Joe. And clearly, Chip just gave up an attack because that Metal Core Barrier was going to guarantee it wasn't happening. Joe using Lana's Fishing Rod to get one back. That's got to be disheartening for Chip. Also, please don't think it's a coincidence that Joe is playing 2 Lana's Fishing Rod in the same deck as 2 Metal Core Barrier. Joe has identified here quite what an advantage that gives him. Speaking of which, of course, there is a Metal Core Barrier on that active Duraludon again. So, yes, if the players just keep taking prizes in turn, Chip will win the game. He is ahead. Well, he was ahead until Duraludon got that KO. The problem is, when you look at Joe's board, you go, well, that Duraludon's going to take a couple of prizes, and it's not getting KO'd this turn, so he is going to jump ahead in the prize race, and that is going to be an issue. That Metal Core Barrier gives Duraludon an effective HP of 200. The only way Chip can get a KO with that is if he's got a freshly evolved Luxray and double Electro Power. But he doesn't have a Luxray ready to evolve, and he doesn't have 2 Electro Power left in the deck anyway. So he's not getting a KO on it. It's not happening. So now what? And the answer is not much. Not much at all. Now, we do see bosses, and I love what Chip is doing here with the boss's orders to get around the Metal Core Barrier. I love this play. We've seen this a lot. We saw this back with Bursting Balloon, the tool that made you take 6 damage counters if you attacked into it. We basically kind of, because they both fall off at the end of your turn. So what you essentially do is you just gust around it. And we do see the KO there. But, and again, I think it was on a Pawniard again, on a backup attacker, but Joe still got that Duraludon. Now the difference, of course, is without Metal Core Barrier, Chip can get a KO with an Electro Power, but then if Joe goes and gets a Metal Goggles, then all of a sudden the KO isn't there anymore. Now, the good news is that Xurkitree is a very nice attacker, and it does actually survive the hit. Now, Xurkitree it's got 120 HP, but it's got a resistance to metal. Duraludon does 110. The problem is the resistance and the Berserker cancel out, and it does 110. So in the same way that we've seen Joe go, you can't get a KO, tee-hee-hee, we're now seeing Chip go, you can't get a KO, tee-hee-hee. Unless Joe's got some last surprise up his sleeve. He's got a scoop up net. Don't think that's going to win him the game, unfortunately. Although, to be fair, if he had a Meowth on the bench, this would actually do it. Because he could then double Meowth. Now, what he's really doing here is basically going, you're not going to KO this, so I'm cool. Remember, Xurkitree does not get a KO. Now, it is interesting to note that Joe still has exactly 3 prizes remaining, so Xurkitree still does 120. The issue is, there's only 1 Electro Power left in Chip's deck, there's no boss's orders, so those tricks that were working well enough in the early game, those tricks need to be buy yourself a bit of time and then you're off winning. And I don't know if we've gotten to the second half of that yet. He's not going to be gusting anymore, those boss's orders are gone. I think there's an Electro Power left in his deck. I could be wrong. And bearing in mind, Chip is fairly close to decking out here, though he may have a Marnie or something to save himself. I hope he does anyway. Or else this ain't going to go too well. How does he take... Oh, and there is a Metal Core Barrier on there again, so that Duraludon is now way, well out of range. Now, it does look like Amani is being dropped by Chip here. That's going to give him a few more cards in hand. It's going to stop him decking out. But I'm slightly worried about where the remainder of Chip's prizes are coming from here. That circuitry is now in range of being KO'd, which will... I mean, Chip is still ahead on the prize race. So even if Joe gets a KO next turn, Chip still just needs 2 KOs to win the game. It's just becoming more and more awkward trying to figure out where they're coming from. And make no mistake about it, Metal Core Barrier has won Joe this game. There have been so many KOs prevented by Metal Core Barrier. I'm not saying it's single-handedly won him the game, but I'm saying, and it's all to do, you know, Joe might have played differently and Chip might have played differently. Things would have changed, but if it didn't win him the game, it certainly has given him a very, very large advantage. And certainly, he's got 2 of them back, so even though he's only allowed to play 2 in his deck, he's used Lana's Fishing Rod to actually make sure he can have 4 in his deck. That is cheeky, but it works. And you now get to the stage of, well, now what for Chip? Now, it does look like he's got a bit of confusion going on here. No, he didn't get the confusion. No, he didn't get... I'm thinking the attack does 50 plus confusion, but he actually did 120 minus 70, which came out to 50. I'd have gone confusion. I don't think it's a great play, let's be clear, and it would have done no damage, but at least it would have put Joe in an awkward position. Joe can just KO now, whereas at least the confusion would have made Joe flip a coin. And I know that it's not exactly what you want, but Joe does look... Oh, and there comes the Mallow and Lana, so it would have all been irrelevant anyway. No matter how much damage was done, confusion, whatever, it doesn't matter. Joe had the Mallow and Lana ready to go. Now we can retreat the Jirachi, get a one-hit KO with... Or not one-hit KO, but get a KO with Duraludon going down to 2 prizes. I want to say Chip's still got an Electro Power. If Joe is out of tools, that does still leave the door open for a KO for Chip. But then where does that final KO come from? Double Zapdos? Maybe. Even though Joe is behind in the prize race here, I like Joe's board an awful lot better. So what's the play here? Check in the discard pile. One would imagine we're just going to see retreating Jirachi into Duraludon to take the KO. Interesting to note, of course, that we do actually now have 2 energy on that bench Duraludon, so in order for Chip to win the game, now he's out of boss's orders, he is going to have to go through both Duraludon. That's going to be awkward. Now it looks like Joe's actually able to take the KO with the weaker attack here. Remember that it is being boosted by Galarian Berserker. But now we're even on prizes. What's Chip got? Does he have a way to KO both these Duraludon? Looks like he's down to that 1 Luxray. We've only seen the 1 Luxray this game, so I don't know whether it was prizes or what, but we haven't seen that second Luxray line coming out. Now, we do see an Evolution Incense. Oh, no, we don't. Sorry, we see a Chinchino dropping the Evolution Incense, drawing a couple of cards. There's only 2 cards left in his deck. Oh, we do see the drawing here. He's digging for something. What's he gone and got? Oh, it looks like he's actually digging for his ordinary rod here. Maybe it's confusion. Like, maybe that's literally how Chip wins this game. Maybe Chip wins this game by just going confusion. Remember, Joe does not one-hit KO Xurkitree. Xurkitree's got 120, Joe does 110, and the Resistance and Galarian Berserker cancel each other out. I wonder if he'll hit it. He hit it! Who could possibly have seen that coming? He's not, unfortunately, going to be able to do the confusion attack this turn. Now, we do see Reset stamp coming down here for Chip. Going to put Joe to a 2-card hand, but he's got double Cinccino and he's got Jirachi if Chip takes a KO, so I still don't think he's terribly worried about draw power. Plus, he's got a free energy Duraludon on the bench. And you'll notice Joe took the KO with a 2-energy Duraludon because he could. He's now got a Duraludon waiting to go on his bench. Again, not a coincidence. Joe's a very good player. He's making sure that he's got the most chance of being able to keep his KOs going turn after turn. Good work, Joe. So where are we now? Does Chip have a KO? He can do 120. Duraludon's got 130. I only remember him playing 1 Electro Power, but it really looks like he might have played 2 or 1 is prized. So retreat into Zapdos and hit. Problem is you're giving up a KO here. Zapdos doesn't have the resistance, and even if it did, it wouldn't matter because of Galarian Berserker. So what's happening now is Joe is just jumping ahead in the prize race. Joe can attach an energy and then get a KO, and then he needs 1 more to win the game. By whiffing the KO that turn, Chip basically turned it over to Joe and just said, look, if you can take KOs on 2 consecutive turns, you win the game. And with the exception of Luxray, Joe can just fairly easily one-hit KO anything. That's not ideal, ladies and gentlemen. It is worth noting Joe does play 1 copy of Boss's Orders. I don't believe we've seen it yet. I could be wrong. Now we do see a Mallow and Lana switching to the bench. There goes the 3rd energy. And obviously healed up Duraludon completely. And I think that might be enough for Joe here. Now, we do see him grabbing an escape board. If Boss's Orders is in his deck, Joe is going to win this game. Like, guaranteed. Because Joe takes a KO this turn, and then next turn, Boss's Orders, he's got an attacker. If Joe's Boss's Orders is in his deck, there is nothing Chip can do to carry this game on. Joe will win this game. Can Chip... I mean, if Chip doesn't take a KO here, the game is over. Assuming Joe's got Boss's Orders. So now we do have that. I was right. There was 1 more Electro Power. So this is where it comes down to the wire. We see Cinccino retreating. Luxray can finally get that last KO. But it doesn't matter. Joe doesn't even need Boss's Orders. Duraludon is doing enough because that Luxray is not undamaged. So up comes Duraludon. Hits for 130 and that'll be game. Congratulations to Joe. He is going to be moving on. 2nd tournament we've had him in. 2nd one, he's made it into the 2nd round. You know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There are a bunch of links in the description for my Twitter, Stefan's Twitter, these lovely chaps, Dragon Shield and TCG Player, all that good stuff. So check the links in the description and look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.